Okay, so we say a very special good afternoon to all of our viewers who are connecting to the live at this moment. We are here at the Forestry Division with Miss Jeanelle Brisbane, of course, who will introduce herself later on throughout the live. And we are here to discuss the state of the mountain chicken here in Dominica. Recently, Dominica News Online published an article following a very well-informed press conference hosted by Ms. Brisbane and some other groups. She will inform us of them. And then from that article that was posted with just about 30 mountain chickens left on island, we saw an influx of questions, a lot of people speculating different things. So hence the reason we are here today to enlighten you on the state of the mountain chicken here in Dominica. We use this opportunity to go live so we can ask some of your questions and you can hear it yourself from one of the experts here on island. And of course, I would just like to highlight before we go through with this live that this live is brought to you. We would like to thank our sponsors, Jungle Bay Dominica. Jungle Bay Dominica shares support and gratitude to the scientists, community members, and agencies who are working to bring the mountain chicken back. It is an important species in Dominica ecosystem. So, of course, without further ado, I'm going to let Ms. Jeanelle Brisbane introduce herself. Jeanelle, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon, Rhonda. How are you?
I'm fine, and you? How are you today?
I'm good. It's nice to take a break from all the hot sun, so I'm happy it's cooling now.
Okay. Jeanelle, can you, for those who may not be aware, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, please, and the work that you do here in Dominica?
Okay, hi everyone. Well, firstly, thank you, DNO, for having this live so that we can be able to answer some of these questions and for publishing the article. And to Jungle Bay for sponsoring this. We greatly appreciate your support of wildlife conservation here. So for those of you who do not know me, my name is Jeanelle Brisbane. I am a wildlife ecologist in Dominica, which means that I study wildlife and how they interact with the natural environment. I am the Assistant Forest Officer with the Forestry, Wildlife and Parks Division under Research and Monitoring.
Okay. Jeanelle, the main reason why we're here today is, of course, the state of the mountain chicken. Recently, the article came out, like we mentioned, and we saw the influx of questions. But before we go ahead and dive into the questions, some of the questions that we saw on social media and on the website, we're going to first give you the opportunity to give us an idea of the survey that was conducted early on this year.
Yeah, hey, where to begin? So this summer we conducted a survey for the mountain chicken frog. It was a population study. This is not the first time that we have surveyed for the mountain chicken frog, but it's the first time since about 2002 that we have actually done an in-depth population study to find out the number of frogs we have left on this island. So it took partnerships from within the region and abroad to bring this survey together. It was about 46 days across this summer with partners from Montserrat, the UK, Latvia, Chile, Anguilla, St. Lucia, Sweden. You know, it was a long list of people who came here to help us, and we're very grateful for all the assistance, whether it was financial or boots on the ground.
Okay. And the idea of this survey, as understood, is to get a population census of the state of the mountain chicken. For those who do not know, Dominica is the home to the only mountain chicken in the world. Can you give us a further understanding of this, please?
Yeah. So the mountain chicken used to exist in a number of Caribbean islands, Eastern Caribbean islands, from St. Kitts going down to St. Lucia. But because of a number of challenges over the years, well, mostly the colonial era, bringing in invasive species, cutting down their habitat for sugarcane and the like, the mountain chicken disappeared from most of its islands except Montserrat and Dominica. So the mountain chicken can still be found in our two islands, Montserrat and Dominica, but Dominica is the last place where you can actually find them in the wild. That we know for a fact. They potentially could still be in the wild in Montserrat, but they haven't seen them in the wild in a really long time, since about 2016 or 2017. But they still have them in a semi-wild enclosure, so they fenced off an area where they still have mountain chicken frogs. But here in Dominica, mountain chicken are freely in our forest. Yes.
Okay. And to those who do not know, the mountain chicken, also known as the crapaud, locally known as the crapaud. So, if in case you are wondering, you know, what makes it distinct to them? Well, of course, it's We know it's on our flag. That's something that you mentioned the last time that we were here. National Bank symbol. So there was once a time when the mountain chicken, it was flourishing here in Dominica, and right now we've gotten to the stage of just having just about 30. Can you brief us on when the survey started, how long, and what's, well, I know the sections of Dominica cannot be highlighted, but just a little bit more about the survey, please.
Yeah, so the mountain chicken frog is one of the largest frogs in the world. It is an extremely important animal to us in Dominica for cultural reasons and also economic reasons. And I'm sure the farmers can agree with me that when the mountain chicken were here in abundance, they were doing a beautiful service of pest control for free. One mountain chicken can eat over 100 crickets in a week, and we had them in the thousands, because one report said that we used to hunt between 8 and 36,000 frogs every year. So if we used to hunt that many frogs in there, you can imagine how many lived here on this island in the heydays. What happened is in 2002, we had the chytrid fungus come here. So similar to how you have black sigatoka taking over the banana farms, killing off the tree, causing them to not be productive, and farmers have to go in, clear the land, and it's a soil-borne fungus. It's the same thing with the mountain chicken frog and the fungus it faces. It lives in the soil. It's here on island, and we do not have a cure. So it's not to say we can go around treating the soil so that they can live here without the threat of the fungus. The fungus is here for a while to come until science decides to have a breakthrough. But with that, the mountain chicken's best bet is to be able to learn how to live with the fungus, whether that's using their environment or through genetic adaptation. And we have found that the frogs here are genetically adapting to become resilient to the fungus. So the same way that we get the flu, we get sick, but then our immune system kicks in and we're able to recover from the flu, that's what's happening with the mountain chicken right now. So some of these frogs are getting infected by the fungus, they're getting sick, but they're able to bounce back and they're passing on those genes. So they're surviving in the wild. Culturally, the mountain chicken used to be our unofficial national dish. It's on our national bank. It's on our coat of arms. It's in our folklore, in our storytelling, in our songs and dance. It's something that's very near and dear to us, and it deserves to be protected. So all this formed the basis as to why we decided to go in and investigate how many frogs are left here. But again, like I said, this wasn't the first year that we surveyed for the frogs. It's been a long 20 years of trying to figure out how to bring the frogs back from the brink of extinction.
Okay, and of course we have a question from Jeanette on joining us on the live at this moment, and she's saying, are they accepting, I guess with the forestry division, are you all accepting any new team members to help with this project that you all are undertaking?
So we're not surveying for it right now, but the plan is to repeat it next year at different sites. So what we did this year, if she would love to join the team, please feel free to reach out, because we are going to go back into the forest next year and continue our efforts. So we'd love to have her on board, and anybody who's interested, please keep listening out and looking out for mountain chicken. What we did do this year is that we surveyed what we would call our strongholds. So the areas where we know that there is still what we believe to be a breeding population of the mountain chicken on Dominica. There were other sites that we had here, but some of the sites have not been active since either Tropical Storm Erica or Hurricane Maria. They took a blow, because there's so few numbers that if, for example, the river flooded and killed 5 frogs, it may have just been 5 frogs in that area, and so that population is gone. But what we're going to do next year is try to investigate some of these areas and see is there anything else still here? Is there one or two frogs still remaining at these sites?
Okay. Importantly, Jeanelle, we'll come back to the survey, but at the press conference, something important that I guess that struck me is that with the presence of the chytrid virus here in Dominica, it wiped out 80% of the mountain chicken, and that's 80%.
80%. 80% of probably over 100,000.
100,000.
That's thousands upon thousands of frogs that were gone within a year and a half.
And then, of course, something importantly that was said on top of that, the human consumption of the mountain chicken. And like you said, the 2002 report revealed that in excess 8,000 to 30,000, and that's something I feel like should be highlighted. 8,000 to 30,000 was removed from the wildlife during the hunting season.
Yeah.
Okay, and Dominica and Montserrat being the two last remaining countries that it's known where we can find the mountain chicken. Dominica mountain chicken or frogs there showing more resilience than Montserrat. Any scientific research to show as to why this may be the reason why Dominica is showing a resilience to the chytrid? Like you said, they're getting the disease, but they're bouncing back. Why isn't Montserrat doing the same? Any research to show why?
Yeah, so the theory is, like with our iguanas and agouti and the manikou, is that some of our species moved through the islands thanks to our first people. So they would select the best animals, just like we have with crops or present day livestock. You would select the healthiest looking, biggest looking animal to move to the next island as a food source. And we suspect this is what happened with the mountain chicken frog. So it looks like the mountain chicken frog are a subset of Dominica's population because of that movement. And because of that, especially as Montserrat is a smaller island, so when the population crashed, already Montserrat's gene pool, is a subset of Dominica's own, because certain frogs they were selected from here and moved to Montserrat, and those frogs bred. So their genetics were, a smaller group than what was in Dominica. But because Montserrat is a smaller island, there are less individuals. So when chytrid came to Dominica and when chytrid came to Montserrat, Dominica, we lost thousands of frogs, and so did Montserrat. But because we had thousands more than Montserrat, there was a higher chance that frogs would remain here. That genetic diversity existed here in a larger quantity than in Montserrat, right? So Dominica had a lot more frogs and a lot more genetic diversity than Montserrat when the disease hit both islands. And that genetic diversity allowed for a very small subset of individuals in Dominica to withstand that the disease that hit. But if it wasn't for that genetic diversity, we have completely lost our population here.
Okay, so it's good that our animals are showing resilience.
It is.
Okay,
yeah.
And to anyone who may just be joining the live at this moment, we are here at the Forestry Division speaking to Ms. Jeanelle Brisbane, who is giving us an update on Dominica's mountain chicken. Previously, Dominica News Online reported that just about 30 mountain chickens are left on island, and as we're hearing from Jeanelle, we once came at a point where we had thousands of mountain chicken, and now to the state of just having only 30. It's really alarming, and it's now time for action. Of course, Dominica News Online would like to take this opportunity to thank Jungle Bay Dominica for making this broadcast possible. Jeanelle, we're going to move on now to something that I saw in the comment section. So many people stating that this can't be the case. They saw 10 in their backyards. I saw this article shared on St. Kitts and Nevis group, and they're saying that they have a lot in St. Kitts. And like you pointed out, there is a misconception of the mountain chicken and the Cuban tree frog. Can you give us the differentiation between the two, please?
Yeah, so I guess to start answering that, that is one of the issues with local names being used across islands for different species. So like in St. Kitts, crapaud comes from the French word for toad, right? So in St. Kitts, they have the invasive cane toad, which is very large. It lives on the ground as well. It's about the size of a mountain chicken, and it can get slightly bigger, but it's a toad. It's completely different than our mountain chicken. But some islands call that crapaud.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about crapaud, some people may get confused and think that we're talking about the cane toad instead of the mountain chicken. Or they may just see a large frog on the ground and think that this toad is a mountain chicken. It's not. St. Kitts used to have mountain chicken, and I wish it still had mountain chicken because that would make our life so much easier right now. But unfortunately, they just have the cane toad, which is also not native to St. Kitts.
Okay.
What we have in Dominica happening now is that after Maria, we got a new species of frog. It's the Cuban tree frog that has toxic mucus on it, but it is one of the largest frogs in North America. So this frog can grow up to about this size, and for a lot of Dominicans, we have not seen a frog that big in a very, very long time. So we get calls all the time about a mountain chicken when it's actually a Cuban tree frog. And the thing about a Cuban tree frog is that it varies in pattern. So some of them may look brown, like our mountain chicken. Some of them may have lines on the body like a mountain chicken or spots. So somebody seeing a frog that size, brownish looking, may just go back to the idea that this is a mountain chicken that they haven't seen in a long while. We actually I have a picture. Yeah, we have a live sample. Well, sorry, not a live sample, but we have a sample of a mountain chicken here. There's two of them. If you can see, clearly we can't take it out of the jar. We tried. We can't take it out of the jar. It's been here for years, over a decade probably. But this is a mountain chicken, so this is the size that the mountain chicken will grow to.
Mm-hmm.
The Cuban tree frog won't get that big. It can't get that big. It will get about this big, the females. They also are tree frogs, which means that they climb. So you can see the Cuban tree frog up on the walls, high up in trees. A mountain chicken cannot do that. A mountain chicken cannot climb a wall. It cannot scale a tree because it doesn't have the toe pads like a Cuban tree frog to be able to stick to the wall.
Okay.
So mountain chickens will only be found on the ground, whether it's like on a rock or a fallen branch or like on the forest floor, the leaf litter. But yeah, let me see if I can pull up these pictures. So yeah, this is what our mountain chicken frog looks like. It's very large, ground dwelling. It has the stripes on the back leg, the darker brown stripes, and it has black spots along the side of the body. We actually use these to identify individual frogs because every frog has its own unique pattern. So we can look at a picture and actually say, oh, this is Courtney Love or Scarleg or something. We name them just like they name the whales. All the mountain chickens have names. And this is the Cuban tree frog. So you see there's a large toe pad. It has very, very large eyes, and webbed back feet because it's semi-aquatic. It lays the eggs in the water.
Okay.
No native frog in Dominica lays their eggs in the water, has their tadpoles in the water. The mountain chicken lays completely underground. So if you were to see little frogs, like tadpoles in the water, frog eggs, that 99% sure that you're seeing the Cuban tree frog unless there's something else here.
Okay.
But yeah, so I think it's just because we haven't seen large frogs here in abundance in such a long time that people are mistaking the two. But it's important for us to clear that up and have people understand the difference so we can really look out for the mountain chicken frog.
Okay. So once again, just to you're pointing out that the misconception that people are saying, and we saw that repeatedly in the article, that I saw it here, I saw it there, I saw it this place. It's not. There's a difference between the mountain tree frog and the mountain frog, mountain chicken, I'm sorry, and the Cuban tree frog.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Jeanelle, in terms of something that you mentioned, and we're going to get back to the animal, the mountain chicken. Other comments that we saw is, how are you also positive that there are just 30?
Mm-hmm.
Did you all survey, in quote unquote local words, every nook and cranny in Dominica? Yeah, I saw that a lot. Did you all survey every nook and cranny? How are you so sure they did not see you in their area? They did not see you this place? How are you confident that, and the article precisely states that you all are 95% positive, confident that there are 30 left in Dom, just about 30. How are you so confident in your research?
Yeah, first of all,
Mm-hmm.
if people didn't see us in that area, but they know there's mountain chicken there, please call that in. Please call that in. If we weren't in your area and you've never heard or seen a mountain chicken in the past 10 years, that's probably why we were not in your areas, because sadly there's none. But with the mountain chicken frog, so I remember people asking like, oh, we didn't go to Pocasset or Bells or places like that. The mountain chicken frog has a very specific habitat type. So we're not going to find a mountain chicken frog on the top of Mount Wapito. Thank goodness. Because that would be a whole different challenge. Sorry. But it doesn't live on, despite its name, mountain chicken frog, it actually likes more coastal areas. So not the top of our mountains, not the crevices, creeks and crannies over by Bells or Pocasset or Central Forest Reserve. Those really wet, dense rainforest areas, mountain forest areas, cloud forest areas, that's not all we're going to find a mountain chicken frog. So already that's off the map for survey area, because even when they were here in the hundreds of thousands, they didn't really like to go to these places. So we narrowed it down to where we know the mountain chicken used to live in Dominica when they were in abundance. And like I said, this is not the first year we have been surveying. This is just the first year we have actually done it in a way where we can say how many frogs we have left. So from about 2014, which is when we started hearing the mountain chicken frog again. So for a long time, we thought that the frog was extinct in Dominica. Nobody reported hearing it, nobody reported seeing it. I think that lasted like about 7 years. This was before my time.
Wow.
But yeah, if I remember correctly, they didn't get a report for mountain chicken for about 7 years. So as soon as we heard reports come in, we started surveying these areas. So we checked everywhere where we surveyed for in 2002. So we have a bunch of transects all over the island where they surveyed for them in 2002 to know where the mountain chicken would be present and in what numbers. And then when people called in, over the past about 10 years, people have been calling in to report. As all forest rangers go out into the field, they're also reporting whether they see or hear anything. So over the past almost 10 years, we have been going in the forest trying to see if we can see a mountain chicken or hear a mountain chicken. But all that used to tell us is if the mountain chicken was present or absent from the site. We couldn't say, based on the data we were collecting, how many. We still used to tag frogs, we still used to swab them to see if the fungus was present, because that's what we wanted to know. Are they alive with the fungus present? But we couldn't say how many. We can tell you how many we've tagged, but that does not give you a population count. So what we did this year is we actually went again to those sites, knowing where we can and cannot find them. We went to those sites and we said, okay, we're going to spend 46 days in the forest looking for this frog, based on how science would allow us to be able to calculate how many frogs are here. And science it's all about percentages, right? We can never say in science that we are 100% sure of something. We can never say that. But what we can do is use the information we collected and say that we are 95% sure. We're very sure that this is the number that we have. Again, we haven't surveyed all our historical sites. We surveyed our strongholds where we know that the mountain chicken is likely still breeding, where we know that they still exist after the hurricane. There are some sites that may have a handful of frogs left, so next year we're going to go back and see, are they here, and is this going to change our number? But the number is not going to change by much more, because these sites are much, much smaller than where we surveyed. So if anything, it may add on another 20. You know, it's not going to be like, oh, we found 30 frogs in our strongholds, but here are another 1,000. No, if anything, that number is still alarmingly small.
So small.
Yeah.
Anything is, you don't predict. Well, people are saying that, how are you not sure that you counted the same frog as before? And you rightfully said that there are distinctions on the mountain chicken that you all are aware it's a different one, correct?
Yeah. So we use two methods. We take pictures of every single frog, because again, it's like that fingerprint. We know this is Courtney Love, this is Scarleg, this is Konopo. You know, just like the whales, how they can tell the whales apart by the markings on their fluke, we can tell these frogs apart. There's 30 of them. It's sadly not that hard to be able to learn all of their faces. But what we also do is that we pit tag them. So just like how, I mean, we also pit tag iguanas, but just like how people would pit tag pets, we insert this small microchip under their skin. We've been doing it again for about 10 years. So we put a small microchip, and every time we catch a frog, we use like a microchip reader, a pit tag reader. We put it around the body so that we can see if we can pick up that microchip, and it has a unique number on it. So no frog is going to have the same number. So we know if we caught that frog already, this is the number, this is who it is. And that's the whole point of a capture mark recapture study. It's to go into an area, you make plots, you make transects, and you walk that space multiple times, and you see how many recaptures are you having versus how many new captures you're having. If you go into a space and you caught 5 frogs, and you spend maybe 20 days there, for example, and in those 20 days you're catching those same 5 frogs, there is a 95% chance that all you have there is 5 frogs. But if you tag 5 frogs the first day, and then the next day you find 5 new ones and 1 recapture, and the next day you find, you know, 2 new ones and 3 recaptures, that tells you that there's more frogs out there because you keep finding new ones.
Okay, Mr. Sultan, we're going to move on to your question. But Jeanelle, we have a question here, of course. This is a live Q&A session with Miss Jeanelle Brisbane. We are discussing the state of Dominica's mountain chicken, the crapaud as we know it. As we previously reported, just about 30 remain. They are left on island, and Jeanelle is giving us an idea based on the questions that we saw, the outpouring questions underneath the article, that there is a difference. The Cuban tree frog, it's not the mountain chicken. The mountain chicken, you can look out for, how they came to that figure. Marshall is asking, good program. He's coming in. He's saying, what measures is the Forestry Department of Dominica implementing to prevent the entry of invasive species, and what's next for the project with the low numbers recorded? Very good question.
Very good question. It's good to hear from Marshall. Marshall used to be the frog king on this island. We miss you, Jelly. Hi, Marshall. So, forestry, when it comes to invasive species, a couple of years ago, what year are we in?
2023?
Yes. Okay, sorry. COVID has affected my ability to tell what year it is. But a few years ago, we sat down with a number of agencies in Dominica. So Forestry sat down with agriculture, who sat down with trade, DASPA, customs, and the like, and we came up with a draft for a national invasive species strategy, because we realized after the hurricane, we had a 50% influx in non-native vertebrate species. So before Hurricane Maria, Dominica had about 10 non-native vertebrate species, and what I mean by that are like you know, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, fish. We had about 10 of them that were not from this island. After Maria, just after Maria, we got 5 coming in, and like the Cuban tree frog and the striped-tailed iguana, some of them have been doing a load of work. So because of this influx, because our biosecurity was so affected by Maria, the agencies came together, and not just public sector, we sat down with private sector as well. Private sector tourism, private sector conservation agencies, we came together to figure out how to combat this biosecurity. So we came up with a national invasive species strategy, and we have been working with these agencies to figure out how best to implement this strategy, how best to have response to things coming in, because that's most important. If something is cited, it is a lot easier to control it at the beginning than it is if it's established on island and there's thousands of them all over the place. So how best can we have that rapid response? And I mean, we're seeing this come into effect because the other day we actually had an endangered snake coming from St. Thomas, and it's because of this network that we're building, agriculture plant quarantine they called Forestry, and we immediately responded and was able to identify and communicate with the respective overseas agencies as to what would happen from then on out. But yeah, yeah, things come in.
Okay, and I guess with the next part, with the low number recorded, what is next? And you briefed, of course, it's highlighted in the article, and you briefed on that. But for those who just may be joining us, we see that we have some newcomers who are asking some questions that may have been answered already. He's just asking, what is the next step in terms of the low recorded number?
Yeah. So the next steps. All of this kind of sparked from a meeting we had with Montserrat. We went together to create a regional action plan on how to move forward. But Dominica couldn't input the way we wanted to because we did not have the numbers to tell them this is how we can contribute to the plan. So we said, okay, we need to do this survey to figure out our numbers. So one of our immediate next steps is to reconvene that meeting to figure out, now that we have these numbers, how can we bring back the mountain chicken frog across the region? If there's only 30 left here, is it where we need to build a semi-wild enclosure in Dominica similar to what they have in Montserrat and breed the frogs here? Is it like with Montserrat where we have to reintroduce some frogs, so frogs from Montserrat's security population, because all the frogs that they have in the zoos overseas are actually taken from Montserrat. Dominica's frogs, I think they took maybe 10 in the early stages, but they never bred in captivity, so Dominica's genes are not represented overseas. So is it where, you know, we have to work with Montserrat to try and bring some frogs here to bolster the population and have them breed and hope our frogs pass on their genes, and, you know, we can boost that population up. So right now we are working on, you know, raising funds to be able to take that next step and to properly chart out what that next step is going to look like. But it looks like we are going to move into that semi-wild enclosure to figure out how to breed frogs here again. In the meantime, we are working on managing short-term threats. So when we were surveying these areas, we found like a number of things happening in the forest. It was burning garbage, dumping garbage right on top of where our mountain chicken were. The first frog we found for the season, beautiful, healthy male calling, and then when we came back to survey that area, that whole patch of forest was burned down. You know, so how do we tackle this? We found 2 frogs dead on the road. That's a first. I think in the past maybe 20 years. I'm not sure when somebody last caught frog dead on the road, but definitely in the past 10 years of surveying, we have not found a frog dead on the road. So that's a new challenge. How do we prevent the Cuban tree frog from spreading disease to crapaud, from eating their young? How do we prevent dogs and cats from eating mountain chicken? You know, how do we secure the 30 we have whilst we figure out how to make it more than 30?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just take this opportunity. DNO would like to thank our sponsor, Jungle Bay Dominica, for making this live possible. If you just happen to be joining us, we are here speaking to Miss Jeanelle Brisbane on the state of our mountain chicken here in Dominica. Jeanelle, we have a lot of new viewers on the live, so for the sake of our new viewers, would you mind showing the two that we have here with us? The two that we have enclosed. Of course, Jeanelle did try opening, the jar. Though we're not successful.
Yeah, this is a very old specimen jar, so it wasn't the easiest thing to open. But we do have two preserved mountain chicken frogs inside of here. Can they see?
Yeah.
So this is what the mountain chicken frog looks like. This is the size. So you see my hand next to the mountain chicken frog. It is one of the largest frogs on this planet. So yes, I think it's in the top 10 largest frogs on this planet. It can grow up to 1 kilometer in weight. Very chunky frogs. And then over here we have the picture of the mountain chicken frog as compared to the Cuban tree frog. So you can see the Cuban tree frog has toe pads on its fingers, which allows it to climb walls, to climb trees. The mountain chicken does not have this. Which means that it is strictly terrestrial. It lives on the ground. If you see a frog on a wall or on a tree, that's not a mountain chicken.
Okay.
Yes.
The song that is something that I'm hearing a lot. Can you get the song online?
I could try to get I could try and make this up, but the mountain chicken has like a whooping song, so it's like whoop, whoop, whoop. That's how the mountain chicken songs. But the Cuban tree frog, it's more like a
okay, that's enough.
They can replay that if they want to know the difference.
Okay, so we have Miss Hilton on the live. Maybe she might just be joining us, but she's asking just a brief synopsis, just how we came to the 30 figure that we reported earlier on.
Yes, thank you for joining us, Miss Hilton. So the 30, how we did it, we've been surveying for almost 10 years across Dominica, north, west, south, east coast. Again, the mountain chicken does not live in our mountain forest. It does not live in our high elevation rainforest. Our mountain chicken loves lower elevation, coastal regions. Despite the name mountain chicken, it is not on top of Mont Diabote, it is not on top of Mont Anglais, Mont Topito. It's not there. And it has never been there. So it's not to say the disease came and wiped it out. As far as we know, the frog has never been there. So we already had an idea of where we can go for the mountain chicken frog. In 2002, when they came here to survey for the frog, they did that because we were hunting the frog unsustainably in such large numbers that we were trying to put a management plan in place to say, okay, this is where the frogs are, this is the population, this is how much we can take every year before we crash the population. So how can we hunt it sustainably, make a sustainable livelihood out of it? So from 2002, we had transects in areas where we knew there was a healthy population of mountain chicken. And then with that data and people calling in, so people were calling in for the past 10 years to let us know where they saw a mountain chicken, where they heard a mountain chicken, and we responded to confirm these sites. So we knew prior to Tropical Storm Erica where there were populations of mountain chickens or mountain chickens living on this island. But that data can only tell us that. It can only tell us that we will find a mountain chicken here or we won't find a mountain chicken here. If we were finding adults or if we were finding babies. That's all we can say. We couldn't say how many. So this year, there's a scientific method in place called macro-capture surveys, where you go in, you set up plots or transects, which are line transects, so big plots depending on the species. For the mountain chicken, we had to do both because we couldn't make a big plot in a river valley. So we had to work with our landscape. But we tried to survey as much area as possible, and we went to each of these individual plots at least 3 times to see, okay, how many frogs are we finding? How many new frogs are we finding? So every frog we found, we pit tagged it, or if it was too small to pit tag, we took pictures of the head, and we were able to tell from the markings along the head and the body that this is Konopo, or this is Courtney Love. So using that data, how many frogs we caught, how many new frogs versus how many recaptures, we were able to plug that in to the computer, into the model. This has been done for a lot of species out there, thousands upon thousands of species. We were able to say, okay, this is how many frogs we can predict still exist in the wild. Again, there are some smaller sites that we have to go back to next year that we didn't get to do this year that may or may not have frogs left after Hurricane Maria. But we're going to check to see, but it's not going to add that much to the number that we currently have, because where we went this year were our main sites, our largest sites. So if our largest sites are turning out such small numbers, because at one site, site 1, we surveyed for 46 days, nights. From 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. we were out there. Site 1, we only found 18 frogs, and it was 10 people in the field every single night, and we only...
And just to point out the time that you all went out there, the time frame. Can you point it out for us, please?
Yes, so 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. from June to August, 46 days across June and August. We went in the field, we surveyed these plots, we did these transects night after night after night, at least 10 people in that field every single night. And at site 1, despite almost spending 1,000 hours across these sites, we only found 18 frogs there. 2 of them were dead, and at site 2 we found 5 frogs.
Very chilling. And Jeanelle, can you highlight how many acres of land in Dominica was surveyed? Would you be able to highlight that for us?
Yes, I can. Give me 1 second.
No problem. So as Jeanelle is getting that information, if you just happen to be joining us, we thank you so very much for joining this educational live here today on the state of Dominica's mountain chicken. Very alarming figures. Just about 30 of them are left. That's a 95% confidence. The Forestry is expressing 95% confidence that there are just about 30 mountain chickens left here in Dominica. And of course, this live brought to you thanks to the sponsors of Jungle Bay Dominica. Jungle Bay Dominica shares support and gratitude to the scientists, community members, and agencies who are working to bring back the mountain chicken. It is an important species in Dominica ecosystem. So we thank you very much, Jungle Bay, for coming on board and making this live possible. Of course, if you have any question for Ms. Brisbane on the state of Dominica's mountain chicken, anything that you would like to ask, we are winding down our live, but feel free to go ahead and share your comments, and we'll be sure to ask these questions on your behalf.
It's just giving me a bit of difficulty to...
No problem. And if you're, while you're looking, Jeanelle, something important that you mentioned the last time, you all have not seen it for yourself, or no one has been arrested for this, but capturing mountain chicken, this is something that reports that you all are still hearing exist here in Dominica. What would be your call to the members of the public? I saw in the article some people saying that they love the taste of mountain chicken, and if they see one, they will eat it. Of course, it might seem funny, but what would be your message to them? I'm sorry, to them it might seem funny. But what would be your message in terms of taking this stance, in terms of killing and eating the animal?
So I remember that's one thing that came up a lot, about like we need to stop eating this frog. Mm-hmm. We have not had mountain chicken as our unofficial national dish since about 2003. Mm-hmm. Forestry 2002-2003, when that population crash happened, Forestry immediately reacted and placed a permanent ban on the mountain chicken frog until the day where it it is to come back in its numbers. Until then, there's a permanent ban on hunting of the mountain chicken frog. So if you're caught with a mountain chicken frog in your hand, you are poaching. You are not allowed to threaten any wildlife. In the wild in Dominica, you're not allowed to attempt to harm it. Even if you were to poke the toe, that's still considered poaching. That's still an offense. So again, the mountain chicken for the past 20 years has had a permanent ban on hunting, and our dish was officially changed to callaloo. It was no longer the frog legs, it was officially written in as callaloo to avoid this. So for everyone who is joking about there being a mountain chicken in their backyard in the past year, and they decide to pick it up and eat it, that's not funny. That's not funny at all. You are denying people on this island, you are denying the next generation the opportunity to grow up how we grew up. Having this call in our backyard, having these frogs hop in our backyard, the ability to earn from this frog once more, because this was a big income for Dominicans. And if there are 30 left on this island, let's say even if there were 50 left, we have over 60,000 people on this island. If everybody had that same mentality, that mountain chicken would have been gone a long time ago. If that's how we want to act. That's how we want to act with any species, whether it's the iguana, the parrots, the mountain chicken, our snakes, however it goes. It's a small island, and we can do a lot of damage if we do not properly respect Dominica.
Absolutely. And I see we have Miss Carbon asking on the live, 2 frogs were found dead, and was that area surveyed? I believe initially you said the 2 dead frogs, they were found by the roadside. That would have led to my next question. During the summer, we saw the excess heat. It not only affected us humans, it also affected the animals. So can you explain more about the 2 dead frogs and how it comes into the heat aspect?
Yeah, so because we had such a extensive cowing season this year, everyone felt that heat, and that dryness too. It's not just the heat, it's the dryness that came with it. What we believe happened is that the frogs were desperate for that water source to be able to have their breeding season, because the mountain chicken is not going to be able to successfully breed without some sort of moisture in the soil. Remember, they don't breed in ponds, they don't breed in the river, they breed in moist soil. So I think what happened is that these frogs came closer to the water source, which would be a river, to be able to get the conditions to breed. And in Dominica, a lot of our roads are along riverways, especially going up into the mountains. So we did survey this site because it is one of our major sites, but this female frog, because the conditions were right in that area, placed her nest next to the roadside. So you have the babies coming out, to feed, to do their due. And mountain chickens, they think that they're very cryptic, which they are. If there's a mountain chicken on the forest floor, there's a high chance that even the experts could pass that frog. That's why we know we use certain tactics to be able to find it. But if we did not have that and we just had to go based off of sight, we could be missing a lot of frogs, because they're really well disguised, they're really cryptic, and so they will hunker down and think that you're not seeing it, but they don't know what a car is. They don't know what people's feet can do, I guess. So unfortunately, it seems like vehicles were driving here at night whilst the frogs were out, or in the evening times or early morning, and they ran over 2 frogs that were out on the road, thinking that maybe if they hunkered down, the threat would pass and they would be okay. But the weight of a car is nothing for a mountain chicken, unfortunately.
Okay. So, to all our viewers, we thank you so very much for joining this live. If you just happen to be joining us once again, we'll reiterate that we're here having a discussion on the state of Dominica's mountain chicken, the crapaud as we know it. This live brought to you thanks to the sponsors, Jungle Bay Dominica. And of course, my next question would be, what would it take for Dominica to move to the next stage of getting the sanctuary or an enclosed space so that our mountain, the 30 that we have left here, we can ensure that they're preserved and they can go out and flourish. Ms. Alfred, we will get to your question. I'll just allow Jeanelle to answer this question. What will it take for us to get this sanctuary?
It's going to take everyone here. We're all stewards of the nature island. Whether you are in an office or not, it's going to take everybody, because we can fence off an area, but if people decide that they don't want to protect the mountain chicken, they want to destroy that sanctuary, then no matter how much fencing we put up, it's going to get destroyed. Similarly, if people want a sanctuary, but we do not have the internal support to be able to put up that fence and create the sanctuary, and work with our sister island partners in Montserrat, then we're not going to get the mountain chicken back. It's really down to public support and helping us mitigate the threats along the way, being respectful of these animals, and being considerate of where you're illegally dumping, where you're burning, what chemicals you are using, because your chemicals don't just stay on your land. It also moves, it washes down the river, or when it rains, it washes from one property to the next, or it can blow in the wind from one property to the next. And agricultural chemicals can kill a mountain chicken frog. So it's being mindful of what you do, where you are, reporting it in, building public support, and helping us to raise awareness on why it is so important for us to protect and preserve this mountain chicken, because those who are our age and older would remember the good times that we had in Dominica when the mountain chicken were here. And it's really unfortunate that we have two generations now in Dominica who don't understand what it's like to live in this island with that animal. So do we want that to continue, or do we want to see the beautiful Dominica that she could be?
Absolutely. And we have Ms. Hilton commenting, saying, with all that's being said, I'd really like my kids to see these animals one day, and we can concur with this. We have a question from Ms. Alfred, who is saying, why aren't you all containing a male and female for continued reproduction? I mean, come on, 30 crapauds, that's ridiculously low. So that also goes back to the breeding question in terms of putting them in captivity. How would you respond to this?
So when we did survey, we did take note of how many males and females that we can find. Mountain chicken, they breed in like a 2-to-1, so 2 males, 1 female. Yeah, for every 2 males, there's 1 female out there. The entire time we surveyed, we only found 1 female frog. Yes, so this is why, again, it's not so simple to just say, oh, we're going to do the sanctuary, because what if we pull out that one female frog from the area and the whole population collapses, because there's no frog there, there's no female frog there left to breed with the frogs that remain. So we are working really hard with our partners with Montserrat to see, is this something where we can pull out these animals and put them into the sanctuary where we know for sure we will be successful with it, or do we have to call on Montserrat to provide us with female mountain chicken to breed with our males here, and hopefully have those genes pass on. So we're trying to work through all the logistics. It's not as simple as just pulling frogs out, because you pull those frogs out and that population could crash, and we don't want that to happen. We want to be able to have them in the wild and boost the wild population, not collapse it and have it all in captivity. So we're trying our best. We're working away as fast as possible, because it's an emergency situation, it's a dire situation. So we're working away as best as possible to see how we can boost the population without threatening what exists in the wild in Dominica.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very alarming to hear. Of course, 30 is an alarming thing, and to hear only one female left, it really...
Well, not one female left.
Sorry.
But one female found.
One female found.
Yes.
Found. Very alarming.
They're harder to find though, so give the props to the females. They know how to hide. But we can only say that we found one female. Granted, some of the juveniles may also be female, but there's no way to tell the gender. You can only tell genders of adults. So we can only say that we found one female frog out of the 23 that we found.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jeanelle, I know the last time you mentioned that one of the issues in regard the terrain was an issue within the 46 days of conducting the survey, but another issue that you all have was going into the various areas where you all were not granted permission at one point to survey an area where you would consider a stronghold or a different stronghold where there were nests. Homes are now being built here. The importance, do you believe that it's now time for us to have laws implemented or laws put in place to protect such areas? Is it time for us to implement that?
Yes, it is. I mean, everybody can look outside the window right now and see the terrain in Dominica. It was a challenge to survey these areas, but we climbed as far as we can climb. We even invested in hard hats just in case, because we were going to some places. We crossed flooding rivers, like we did what we had to do to try and find these frogs. We were there despite whatever circumstance. Most of the times we are granted access to be able to conduct these surveys, especially by Dominicans, but we did have the unfortunate incident where someone of foreign nationality did not allow this on their property despite it being a key area to survey. It was an unfortunate incident, but most people did let us in because, I mean, you give Dominicans the opportunity to have a conversation about this, and there is a lot of willingness on this island to allow us to be able to do what we have to do to save the species. So we're very grateful for that. But it is definitely time that we create a protected area for this mountain chicken frog so that we can avoid this in the future. What if, I mean, most of the population right now exists on private lands, and in 2018 we had a third stronghold of the mountain chicken where we found multiple nests across the years. Little froglets. So we knew they were breeding there. We still found mountain chicken there right after Maria in 2018. And we came back to survey the site because we surveyed every other month. And somebody had started digging to put a foundation for their house because it's private land, and they were given the go-ahead to do so without realizing what was on their land. And I think that is, it's someone who came back who had not seen us surveying, but also we need to communicate better across agencies. We need to not just with words, but also with data. We need to share data better across agencies. We need to share plans across agencies to ensure that this doesn't happen again. But if most of the mountain chicken exists on private lands, and we lost an entire population because someone built a house on top of where they were living and on top of their nesting site, we haven't seen frogs there since 2018. That can easily happen with our two other sites. Somebody decides to go in and wants to develop this area. Within a year, those frogs could be gone easily if we do not take action and create a safe space for them.
Okay. Are there any proposals before government or discussions happening with the higher authorities to safeguard these areas? Is that presently ongoing?
Yeah, it's presently ongoing. So we had a really good discussion. We had a really good discussion a few weeks ago. We had a representative from one of our other partners on island, and we did have a good discussion about how we can proceed with this. So we are currently working on putting this information together so that we can move forward with the steps necessary to create these protected spaces.
Okay, Jeanelle, I have you here for over an hour, so we're going to
Okay.
wind down very soon.
Okay.
But Mr. Robin is asking, are there any laws in place to grant access for such critical surveys, even if it's private land?
There are laws. There are definitely laws. So if there is something of ecological concern, forestry does have the law on its side to be able to survey that area. We just cannot go into your house. We can't go into your house, but we do have the right to be able to check these areas. Unfortunately, you do not want to always push that, because there could be repercussions. You don't want to say, okay, well, we can do it regardless, and this person retaliates by trying to remove why you're there in the first place. You don't want to risk the mountain chicken or, you know, the parrots or how it goes. You know, so if you're saying, okay, well, the parrots on your land and we're going to come and survey here because we can see them, we know they're here, or we can hear them, we know they're in this area, and we need to survey here. And then the person doesn't want people on their property and they go around and try and eliminate all those animals, you know, that is a real threat that can happen. So we try our very best to mitigate that issue or to come to a compromise before we barge in with the law.
Okay. And you know, the last time really struck home where you all mentioned that in the event that anything isn't done, we continue on the same path that we're on. The invasive species, they continue to come in. We just have about 10 years left until we reach the point of extinction with our mountain chicken. So that really struck me. So I'm hoping that this can really encourage other citizens to take action. And like you said, the things that we are doing right now, can you just mention some of the things that we are doing, we as human beings, we are doing to endanger the species? Can you point that out for us, please?
Yeah, so, well, one, if you see a mountain chicken, please don't touch it, please don't pick it up. Leave it exactly where it is and call it in to Forestry. Forestry Wildlife Park Division. You can reach us at 266-5852. Please call us in. Or you can take a picture and send it into forestry@dominica.gov.em. But one of our main things that we're hearing now that's really concerning is that people are, I don't know if it's all jokes. I don't believe it's all jokes. We at Forestry don't believe it's all jokes, but we are hearing reports of people boasting about catching or consuming a mountain chicken. Again, that is not funny. That is disgraceful. That is inconsiderate of your island and all the citizens on this island who want to be able to reach that point again and have their children enjoy the Dominica that we once enjoyed. So we need to work together to ensure that this is protected and not exercise these selfish behaviors. Other than that, we need to be mindful of what chemicals we're using on our farms and even on our household. You know, pouring bleach outside, that's not good for any living thing. A lot of our agricultural chemicals are capable of killing a mountain chicken frog along with other wildlife. Please don't dump garbage indiscriminately, and please don't set fires to places because you could be killing these animals. These animals hunker down underground. And so if you set fire to a place, they might be trapped where they're hunkering down in the daytime. They may not be able to escape and they may become a victim of that fire. So please don't dump in places and bury them. Please don't light things on fire. Please be mindful of the chemicals that you're using, and please, please, please be mindful of having your dogs and cats outside, because cats have caused extinctions of species around the world. They hunt for fun and for food. They kill millions of animals every year just by a cat running outside. So please be very mindful of these things. And if you do see or hear a mountain chicken, call it in, because we need to know if there is anything else out there that can help us bring this species back.
Okay, and of course our focus today was on the mountain chicken, but my final question before we wrap up this live, as understood, there are two other species here in Dominica that's bordering on the brink of extinction. Can you just give us a brief synopsis on these two animals, please.
Yeah, actually, on that note, when we're talking about the mountain chicken, because I mentioned, like agricultural chemicals kill a lot of other wildlife too, and some of these practices also kill a lot of other wildlife. Where we find mountain chicken, that is some of the most beautiful piece of wildlife habitats on this island. We find everything. We find all our snakes, we find so many birds, we find all of our lizards, all of our frogs exist where the mountain chicken exists. So if we were to protect these lands and to also create, a sanctuary, whether it's a fence-off area that breeds, we're not just protecting the mountain chicken, we're protecting so many other species here because they exist in these places that we can still consider suitable for our wildlife. Low levels of chemicals, low levels of disturbance, even wasps. Wasps are a great indicator of low use of pesticides, and yes, some of our teammates did get stung, but it was still great to see because we knew like this site was good for the mountain chicken. They didn't have to worry about chemicals. But speaking to other wildlife, so we have one protected area for one of our critically endangered species, which is the Cicero parrot, right? That's Mount Diablotin National Park. But Dominica has two other species on the brink of extinction. We have the lesser Antillean iguana, and I know people are going to say they see iguanas here all the time, but we need to realize that the iguanas used to be in 6 islands in the Caribbean, 6 main islands. Dominica is the last main island with a healthy population. So if something were to happen to Dominica, this iguana could be gone from the whole region. So it's critically endangered because it's continuing to disappear from the other islands, and it's actually going down in Dominica. If we didn't control the striped-tailed iguana, we could have lost our population here. So we have the lesser Antillean iguana and we have the mountain chicken frog. The iguana, the leza, and the crapaud, they both exist outside of protected areas. But if we were to develop a protected area for the mountain chicken frog, we will be protecting all 3 critically endangered species in Dominica. Yeah, so we're not only working to save the mountain chicken, we're working to save Dominica's wildlife and us, because our health, our economy is based on our natural resources, and if we don't do anything about it to safeguard our natural resources, we're the ones who are going to pay the price.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're hearing this passionate plea from Ms. Brisbane for us as citizens to play our part, in addition to the authorities also implementing the necessary procedures that will take to ensure the safety of these animals. Jeanelle, I'm going to wrap up right now, but I'm going to leave it to you. Is there anything else that you wish to say, anything I did not cover that you feel the need that the public should be aware of? Anything else you wish to say? Any parting words?
Yeah, well, I just wish to say thank you to everyone who did help us, because it took a massive effort. I know we're talking about regional and international people coming in to help us, because I believe strongly in allowing the islands to also facilitate the work here. We share the same habitat, we share the same wildlife. Why not help each other to do it? But we also had a massive help internally across agencies, but also with the landowners and farmers who were extremely willing to have us step all over their yard from 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. How many days in a row, tagging trees, laying out things, doing what we needed to do in that area. There were so many great people on this island who are helping us to identify these areas, to keep these areas as pristine as possible, whilst also being able to use the land, and just allowing us the space to do what we need to do. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone who works with us over the summer, and to everyone who will work with us in the future, whether it's through the next survey or anything else to come, who will assist us. Greatly appreciate you. And again, if you do hear or see a mountain chicken frog, please reach out to Forestry at 266-5852, and we look forward to seeing how we can work more in the future together to bring back this beautiful species.
Okay, Jeanelle, of course, I said it was my last question, but Mr. Robin, I'm sorry, I'm just going to squeeze in his question. Are you all taking that education to the schools? Any plans to have it brought to the younger generation?
Yeah, so we do. We have been doing it. Actually, Mr. Sultan, who commented earlier, he was a star at bringing it to the schools. We did a survey a few years ago of our school kids, both in high school and in primary school, looking at what they knew about our wildlife, and the mountain chicken was up there. They knew, of all the wildlife, they knew the most about the mountain chicken because of how much education has been happening over the years, and we continue to push that education, not just the mountain chicken but the other species. But it's definitely reached the schools, and through working with the media like Dominica News Online, live, whether it's articles, school outreach events, we are trying our very best to keep the word out there and keep Dominicans informed of what we have in our backyard.
Absolutely. So here at Dominica News Online, of course, we pledge our support to assist in any way possible because we understand the implications. If you just happen to be joining us, once again, we spoke to Ms. Brisbane, who highlighted the importance for each and every one of us playing our part, as Dominica has just about a 95% confidence, just about 30 mountain chickens left in our wild, and Dominica is distinct, being the only country in the world, and we must stress that, the only country in the world where you can find a wildlife population of the mountain chicken. Jeanelle, we cannot remove it from the jar. We're not going to try again, but one more time for new viewers, can you just show it to them, please?
Yes, if you can see clearly. So this is what a mountain chicken looks like. See my hand next to it. It's a pretty large frog. It's one of the largest frogs in the world. So see the black lines on its face. You see its large body size. Yeah, there's two of them in here, but this is our mountain chicken frog. So I wish we could take it off of the jar.
We did try. We will stress that we did try to take it off of the jar. Okay.
Yeah.
So once again, to all our viewers, we thank you so very much for connecting to this live today. Gina, we thank you for this very informative session today. We hope to bring you more informative sessions such as this, hopefully next year. Once they go out on the field, we can report success, double of the 30. So we're hoping for success next year. We'd like to, of course, thank our sponsors, Jungle Bay Dominica, who share support and gratitude to the scientists, community members, and agencies who are working in to bring the mountain chicken back. It is important to our Dominica's ecosystem. So we thank Jungle Bay Dominica for coming on board and sponsoring this live. Thank you so very much to businesses like this who see the need to bring information as this to the public. So wherever you are, we thank you once again for joining us. Do feel free to contact the Forestry. Jeanelle, once again, just trust the numbers very quickly for someone who may have missed it.
Yes, so the number for Forestry is 266-5852, or if you prefer to email, it's forestry@dominica.gov.dm.
Okay, and this is to report the mountain chicken, or if you would like to give financing, be sure to call that number. Do enjoy the rest of your afternoon.